stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The last thing I'm going to do is introduce Stacy Rudolph. She works here at the VFW, and when she heard that Tulsi was coming, she goes, I want to introduce her. So she's going to be able to do that, and I'm going to go take my seat. Oh, one last thing. I know, one last thing. I sound like a politician. But anyhow, as the host of the town hall, I reserve the right to ask the first question of Tulsi. So hopefully it'll be something you can answer. All right, Stacy, come on up.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so I'm pleased to have you all here tonight. I've been following Tulsi for many years now. She's a true fighter. She's bringing respect and dignity back to the Democratic Party. She's reaching across party lines, okay? And bringing dignity back to the White House. So let's welcome veteran Major Tulsi Gabbard. There she is.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Good job. Can I ask you a question? I reserve the right to ask you the first question, Richard. I'm curious, what branch of service were you in? The Army?
I was in the Navy.
Ah, okay. You were an enlisted man?
Yes, I was.
And what rank were you when you left?
Well, which time?
I don't know.
I was an E6.
Because as I was hearing you deliver your briefing to the crowd here tonight, you gave me flashbacks to me as a private or a specialist standing in my platoon listening to my platoon sergeant. So good job, you still got it in you. Thank you very much, Richard. And really, thank you for opening your doors here to us. I'm so grateful to be able to be here in your VFW. And thanks to all of you for making the time to come out this evening. I really appreciate it. Time is the most precious thing that every single one of us has. It's the one thing that when given can never be taken back or gotten back. So it means so much to me that you've chosen to spend this evening here with us. So thank you very much. Before we begin, I would like your indulgence. Where's David? David, can you come up here for a second? David is one of our tireless volunteers here who's really set aside his own life for a few months, right, David? And he's giving all of his time and his energy to our campaign. And I want you to help me wish David a happy birthday. Today is his birthday. How old are you today, David?
23.
Just share a word or two. I know you're going to speak.
Yeah,
You want to save it for later?
for later.
All right. David's got something special planned later. Thank you very much, David. Happy birthday. Thanks for choosing to spend it with us. So much to be grateful for. I just want to ask you to pause with me, though, before we start our conversation this evening. And if we could just send our good thoughts and prayers to those who were stabbed last night in Rockland County as they were worshiping and celebrating Hanukkah. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And it is so heartbreaking that more and more we are seeing how these terrible divisions that are getting deeper and wider in our country are hurting so many people. I get asked sometimes, almost every day actually, especially as the weather gets colder and colder here in New Hampshire, Tulsi, why aren't you in Hawaii? Why aren't you enjoying the sunshine and the surf in paradise? And my answer to them is because I love our country. There is so much at stake that too often in this political circus that surrounds us, there is so much hyper-partisanship, and when you turn on cable news, I have a hard time watching it because our politics and our democracy is too often reduced to sport, a game. Who is fighting against who, and who's getting the win columns, and who is getting more points on which side. But it is the lives of the people in our country that are lost from this conversation. That it's about one party versus another, rather than thinking about how can we as a country begin to heal these divides and come together to solve problems, to serve the people of our country. I was at Coffee earlier today. Thanks, I see you guys here. You came over. Your name is David, is that right?
No, Parker.
What is it?
Parker.
Parker, I'm sorry. But while we were there, we got a chance to talk to some other folks. Parker is working at Coffee. Coffee's up here on a winter break. He's going to school in Florida. But we got to talking to some folks, and there was actually a kid who's in high school who lives in Wyndham, and he came over. He's 15 years old, and he was very eloquently talking about how problematic it is that we have a lot of politicians in Washington who are spending all their time bickering with each other. But in his words, and Elijah's words, he says, "What about us?" And that's really where we are right now as we look to the core of the great challenges that we face in this country. And as we look to what is necessary for us to solve those challenges, to overcome them, to actually be able to move forward together, it comes down to ensuring that our leaders are actually working for us. That we are able to heal these divides, to build these bridges that remind us on who we are, about who we are as Americans, about what it is that connects us all, that even as we may have different party affiliations, we may vote for different people, that we have different stories, experiences, different family backgrounds, different religions, different race, ethnicity, orientation, all of these different things. There is still something very special that connects us all. It is who we are as Americans, and the Constitution, the principles enshrined within this document that is the bedrock of our nation that connects us all together. And so when we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, it serves as a reminder for us, especially during times like this, about where we need to go. It lights that path forward for us, reminding us that we are one nation under God. We are indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This may not be where we are today, but it charges us with this challenge, this opportunity, and this responsibility that in this country, in the United States of America, it is about we the people, and we are the only ones who can bring about this change that will move us forward towards that more perfect union with equality and justice for all. But it starts with every one of us. It starts with every one of us being able to inspire this change in our own lives, in our own communities, in the conversations that we are having. And especially as we head towards these elections, as you choose who you want to serve you, who you want to lead in this country. The stakes are incredibly high. And it is especially during times like this that I I draw inspiration from Dr. King, Martin Luther King. I cannot imagine what he and so many other civil rights heroes endured during their time of hardship and challenge, with immense obstacles being placed in their paths as they fought not for themselves but for a generation, fighting for equality and justice for all. And even when faced with physical violence and hardship and doors being slammed in their face, what was his answer? That darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. That hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. It's hard, right? It's not easy. When there is so much darkness that surrounds us, there's so much of this hatred and bigotry that surround us, sometimes the easy reaction is to respond with hate. But there is nothing more powerful than love, and we need only to look to examples like Dr. King to show us, to remind us, and to light this path forward for us. So this is really what's at the heart of what I feel we need to do. This is the experience that I bring to being able to serve you as President and Commander-in-Chief. This focus on this mission of service is something that runs deep in my soul. This unity that comes from a common sense of purpose is something that I first really felt and understood in a very deep way when I first joined the military. Like a lot of people, I enlisted after 9/11, motivated by those terrorist attacks to do my part, to serve my country, to go after those who attacked us on that day. And I'll never forget that first day that I was in Fort Jackson in South Carolina, showing up for basic training on day one, and there was well over maybe 150 of us, maybe 200, all standing in a big square in this open bay. And just looking around that room, you know, I was the only one from Hawaii who was there, and so I didn't know anybody. We would all become very close very quickly, but we had people from all parts of the country, people who represented really the diversity that is the United States of America. And it went without words. We didn't have to say anything to know that as we stood there, we knew that we were all connected. Right, Richard? Because we all chose, we raised our right hand, and we took an oath to support and defend our Constitution, to serve our country, and to be willing to lay our lives down to do so. So really, all of the differences and the superficial things that made us different from one another didn't even matter. Because whether in training or while deployed overseas, we were connected and bound together by this common purpose. We knew that our mission was one of service to the people of our country and to our nation. And it is that same feeling of unity and purpose that we need in our government. Too often, I hear from people that they feel there's no way for us to move forward. There's no way for us to bridge these divides, that it's just has to be accepted that Washington will continue to be one party fighting against the other, that there will continue to be gridlock, that real legislation that actually solves problems it's just not going to happen. It's done. It's finished. That's in the past. But that is not the case. That cannot be the case. We cannot accept failure because there is so much at stake. Charging our leaders with this responsibility to overcome those differences, to treat each other with respect, in spite of those differences, to be able to begin that dialogue that can allow us to move forward together. This is what is necessary. And this is my personal commitment to every single one of you, to every single American in this country, is to treat you with respect, to see everyone as my fellow American, to ensure that we can have this dialogue as a country that can enable us to move forward together. Now you might say, well, this sounds nice. Sounds a little unrealistic, maybe, but it's not. It's something at a very practical level in Congress that I've navigated my way through and figured out in a very practical way. How do you get things done? I was elected in 2012, one of 50 Democrats elected to serve in a Republican majority in the House, and was told right away, don't even try to pass legislation. You're not going to be able to get anything done. A longtime experienced Politico person in Washington, a friend of mine, just said, the best way that you can spend your time is to give speeches on the House floor. Just maximize your platform. Try to bring voice to issues that you care about, or bring voice to those whose voices are not being heard, which is important. It's absolutely important, but that's not the only thing. There must be action. And in order for us to spark change in the way that our government is set up, you've got to be able to work across the aisle. You've got to be able to work with other members of Congress, whether with the executive branch working with Congress or leaders in Congress working with each other. And so I started to think about how I could do that. I didn't know anybody there. Maybe I knew a couple of members of Congress, but didn't really know very many people. And decided to go with the basics. I called my mother in Hawaii. Moms are full of good ideas. I asked her if she would make 434 boxes of her amazing macadamia nut toffee for every one of my colleagues and soon-to-be friends in Washington. Thinking that, a good place to start would be with this most universal language of food, right? This is something that brings us all together. And she's incredible. She said, yes, of course, I'd be happy to help. I asked if she would do me one more favor, if she would make another 435 larger boxes of toffee for the staff of every member of Congress. She didn't laugh in my face. She didn't say no right away, but she did pause for a few minutes, and I could tell she was trying to figure out how much longer it was going to take her. But she understood why it was important, and so she said, yeah, I'm in. So as she got to work, she's in Hawaii, she's stirring her pots of toffee and chopping the macadamia nuts, getting it ready. My dad was the he's self-appointed quality control guy. He took a slice out of every single pan that she poured. And while they were doing that, I was in DC, and I just started going online and learning more about my new colleagues, learning about their background, where they come from, and handwriting personal notes, and signing every one of them, just saying, I look forward to serving with you. And we started to deliver these gifts of aloha, as I call them, and immediately started getting a response that while on the floor during House votes, members of Congress from different parts of the country who I normally wouldn't have the chance to interact with or get to know for serve on different committees or whatever the case may be. They came and they found me on the House floor and just said thank you. Many of them saying that they ate all the candy and they needed more before they could go home to their family that weekend. But then most importantly, just saying, hey, tell me what's going on in your district. What are some of the issues that you want to start working on here in Congress? Let's find a way to work together. And it was amazing to me then and throughout my time in Congress how that simple gesture of just reaching out with respect, with what we in Hawaii call aloha, really brought such a response that went past all of the political stuff, all the political noise, because reaching out didn't come with preconditions or a purity test or anything else, just at a person-to-person level saying, hey, we are both here to serve. Let's find a way to serve together. And so I've been in Congress now for 7 going on 8 years, and the first 6 years that I've served have been with Republicans in control of the House. But throughout that time, purely because of that foundation, those relationships that were built on respect, I've been able to be very effective in passing legislation, getting things done, and serving my constituents, and actually delivering results. So that my phone calls are returned when I'm calling and saying, hey, I need your vote on my bill. So that when those votes come up, we can have real honest conversations. I can make my pitch, say, hey, here's why this legislation is important. And my colleagues know that I'm not going to lie to them. I'm not going to set them up for failure, and make the argument based on the substance of my legislation, leaving the politics out of it. And many times being able to say, hey, yeah, vote for my bill. Don't just give this the partisan rubber stamp yes or no one way or the other. And this, look, I passed my first bill that I introduced in Congress within my first year in office with Republican majority because of this. Been able to get things considered in the House floor when everyone said it wasn't possible. So the practical realities of what's possible when we just go back to the basics and treat each other with respect for who we are, rather than playing the partisan political games, is the key to how we move forward together. This is the leadership and the experience that I bring as president, where right away, just as I did as a member of Congress, I'll invite leaders from the House and Senate over to the White House to start these conversations away from the TV cameras, away from the Twitter noise, and make this a regular thing. At least monthly meetings. And you might think, well, gosh, of course, like everyone would do that, right? It makes headlines in DC when congressional leaders are invited to the White House. Why? Seems like it should be something that happens regularly, right? No, it doesn't. It makes headlines because it hardly never happens. It's a rare thing. And usually it ends up with a whole lot of posturing and no real dialogue and conversation happening at all. And so if you think about, your jobs or even your family, if you're not willing to have real dialogue with your coworkers or your family members, how do you get anything done? If there's no trust there, if there's no respect there, how do you get anything done? Can't. The key for us to be able to move forward as a nation, both with our leadership and in our communities across the country, lies in this. Going back to the basics and reminding each other of who we are and how we are all connected, so that we can bring the diversity of our ideas together to come up with creative solutions to the many, many problems that have been so long-standing in this country, and make sure that we are together working side by side, building towards that more perfect union and that bright future, and that you, as Stacy said, that our White House can truly once again become a beacon of light and respect, honor, and integrity. This is what you deserve. This is what we, the American people, deserve. And I'm here tonight asking every one of you, inviting you to join our people-powered movement to make this a reality, because you deserve better. I'm going to end it right there. I want to open it up to questions and start our conversation here tonight. Thank you so much. We've got a few microphones coming around. We also have a bowl of some gold-wrapped macadamia nut toffee, Mom's recipe, so you can have a taste of it yourself. We'll start with you, Richard.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming tonight.
Thank you.
One of the things that I try to ask every candidate that comes to our post to speak to us is something that is near and dear to me. I know that since 2001, we've had the war on terror going on, and before that we had other little conflicts that we seem to get into. I consider that to be due primarily to something that Mr. Nixon did many, many years ago when he got rid of the draft. Right now we have a volunteer Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and a lot of these people that are serving have been deployed multiple times. I think that this is kind of like what we have in the United States today. People that they don't participate anymore. They just sit at home and watch TV or whatever. It heartens me to see that people actually come out to these rallies. So my question is, when you're president, will you encourage bringing the draft back?
Thank you, Richard. You weren't drafted, were you?
Almost.
Okay.
It was one of these find the service before the service found you.
Right. So that's what you chose. Thank you for your service. And before I answer your question, I just want to ask if there are any other veterans or military family members who are here. If you could rise, please, and just let us thank you all for your service. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. It's an incredible thing. And I'm grateful that, especially on Veterans Day, but even during times like this, no matter where we go, earlier tonight, met a Vietnam veteran who'd served in the Coast Guard, but across generations, there's this powerful bond that allows us to connect as brothers and sisters in arms, even as we've served in different conflicts or wars or different eras, that we know what it means to serve, to put service above self, and I'm grateful to be a part of this family. I don't think that the draft is the right answer to get to the heart of what you're talking about, which is to bring back this sense of duty and service to our country, this sense of responsibility. And I'll tell you why. For me, April makes 17 years for me in the Army National Guard. I've served enlisted for 4 years, first deployment, then came home, went through officer candidate school, earned my commission, and then deployed a second time as a platoon leader and led a platoon. I would want to know that if I'm deployed downrange or even in training, that I am standing next to somebody who chose to be there. That's my personal choice and my feeling. I think that this question of a broader debate that I think is good that's going on here is really about national service more than it is about the military. Would you agree with that? About that sense of service and responsibility?
I would say that it's about the government not getting into what you
So everybody feeling like they've got a stake in this, right?
It would be, right now, the answer to any problem seems to be attack somebody.
Yeah.
That's not the answer to any problem, And I think the reason that's the answer is there's so few people that are actually got any skin in the game.
Fair enough.
The thing that ended the Vietnamese War was all the people that were, the parents and everybody else that were saying, well, my son is, going to a war that has no purpose.
Yeah.
And I sense that that's the issue nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the government seems to think that the solution to anything is attack them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is the wrong answer. It's absolutely the wrong answer. Look, I think the problem then, as it is now, is that in most cases our government is controlled by by and for the powerful elite. And as it was then, my concern would be now that those who are in powerful positions are able to take care of their kids and make sure that their number was skipped in the draft or whatever. There's so many different examples of this, both high profile and not. I think that the better answer would be that we choose leaders who are making the best decisions for our country and who take seriously, whether it's their child or not, that they are sending our nation's sons and daughters into harm's way, putting their lives at risk, and they better be able to answer what this is for and how it serves our country and our national security interests. I agree with you. For so long now, we've seen one regime change war after another, follow-on nation-building missions, just as we've seen released recently in the Afghanistan papers. How many of you saw that article or have heard about this? If you haven't, I encourage you to go online and look it up. The Washington Post did a series of articles about documents that they got from the Pentagon detailing how over 3 administrations, the current and the previous 2, we, the American people, have been lied to by some of the leaders at the highest levels in our government about what we're doing in Afghanistan and why. Seeing like 3 4-star generals behind closed doors kind of scratching their heads saying, what are we doing there? What does winning look like? And not being able to answer that question, not being able to clearly say, okay, well, this is what is necessary to ensure the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. No. And because they refuse to admit failure, because, I don't know, there's a lot of different reasons, but it harkens back to a lot of the same things that we saw in Vietnam, where instead of doing the right thing and saying, hey, let's bring our troops home, let's stop wasting so much of our taxpayer dollars on a war and nation building in another country, and let's actually focus on redirecting those resources here at home. Instead, they chose to continue to take money out of our pockets and are still today deploying troops into Afghanistan, even after these documents have been released, showing very clearly that this should have happened a long time ago. We should have come home and pulled out of Afghanistan a long time ago, that this would not undermine our national security. Our security concern is about Al-Qaeda, for example, and other terrorist groups. There are much better, smarter, and more effective ways, like deploying special force teams to take out these cells as they begin and then come home, rather than indefinitely deploying thousands and thousands and thousands of troops to occupy these different countries like Afghanistan. My cousin and his unit, they just came home from Afghanistan. They were there for a year, but thousands more of our troops are still there. We've got a few hundred from the Hawaii National Guard who are in Afghanistan right now. The terribly high human cost is real, and I cannot even begin to imagine what the family members of those 2,434 U.S. troops who've been killed in Afghanistan are going through now after learning what we are seeing that's been released in these documents. As we sit here tonight, our government is spending $4 billion a month in Afghanistan. $4 billion a month. It's going to prop up a corrupt government, and it's going to line the pockets of the military-industrial complex and a lot of fancy consultants and others. And for what? That's $5.5 million an hour. And meanwhile, we have teachers here at home who aren't getting paid enough. We have kids who need help in schools who are dealing with different challenges, mental health issues, or others who aren't getting help from school counselors or professionals. I met a mother today of 3 kids who is struggling because she has a child who's severely autistic, and she's trying to hold down a part-time job and go to school to become a nurse at the same time, and is trying to figure out how to make all these pieces work in her life for herself and her kids. We look at the very real needs that we have in our communities here at home. How many people are struggling and really dealing with serious challenges? It is absolutely unacceptable that we have leaders in our government who, without a second thought, are going and spending $5.5 million of our taxpayer dollars every single hour in Afghanistan, and not able to give you a good reason as to why this serves you and your family, your safety, security, and freedom. So this comes down to leadership. It comes down to leadership and accountability. The experience that I bring to this responsibility as Commander-in-Chief, of having served in Congress now for 7 years, on the Foreign Affairs Committee, on the Armed Services and Homeland Security Committees, very deeply well-versed in issues related to foreign policy and national security, and combined with my own personal experience as a soldier. Deploying twice to the Middle East. I bring this experience that prepares me to do this job on day one, and have the courage to be able to make these decisions to end this long-standing regime change war policy, to end this nation-building mission, to work to end this new Cold War and this nuclear arms race that's taken more money out of our pockets and making us and the world less safe, and instead redirect our resources, our limited taxpayer dollars, actually towards serving the needs of people here at home. This is my commitment to every one of you, and I hope that Trump does the right thing and brings our troops home from Afghanistan now. But if it is not done and I'm elected president, this is something that I will do in my first months in office.
Hi. First, I wanted to thank you very much for spending the evening here with us.
Thank you for being here.
And I certainly wish personally that I was in Hawaii, but I appreciate you coming up here.
Thank you.
You've been very outspoken about America's involvement in terms of wars overseas. I wanted to just take a moment to discuss the war at home, and that's the war on gun violence. Many candidates have been very outspoken about this issue, and one of the critical pieces that a lot of candidates have in their plans is federal licensing. So I wanted to know, since you come from a state that has federal licensing in terms of, well, not federal licensing, but license to purchase in your state, yeah. I wanted to know where you stood on that in terms of doing that federally. And then my next question is, what is your favorite break?
Surf break?
Yes.
Okay. Making sure we're on the same page here. I'll answer the second question first. My favorite surf break in Hawaii, I call it Bridges. It's not the, what's it actually called, honey? I don't care. I call it Bridges. What is it?
You don't want to say it because.
Oh, okay. We don't want to say it because then everybody will know. If there are any surfers here, you surf?
I used to windsurf when I was young.
Do you surf regular or goofy?
Well, honestly, when I was young, I had no idea.
Oh, okay.
But I used to windsurf. I used to love it. But
Yeah.
after moving to the Northeast,
It got a little cold.
Yeah.
It got a little cold.
It's gone.
I just checked in. We're going to be in Hampton the next couple of days, and I called somebody up there who we met and seeing what the surf is like in Hampton. We'll see if I can summon the courage to get out in the cold. But I surf goofy, which means it's right foot forward. And this break is out on the north shore of Oahu, and hardly anybody goes there, and it's a really beautiful left. So that's my favorite break. I have not surfed in the Northeast yet, though, so we'll see. Look, I think that I think we need to have a larger conversation about federal laws with regards to guns and how we can make sure that we're achieving our ultimate objective of keeping firearms out of the hands of those who seek to do harm to others. And so you mentioned Hawaii. For those who are less familiar, the process that you've got to go through in Hawaii is a lot more onerous than here in New Hampshire. Go to the gun shop, you pick what you want to buy, pay for it, they get to keep it, you take the paperwork, you go to the police department, fill out the forms to apply for the permit. They will run a background check, and they will also call your primary care physician to see if there are any other mental health issues or other things that they would recommend preventing you from having a firearm. Once that goes through, it's at least a 2-week process before you can go back, get the permit, then go back to the gun shop, give it to them, they run through everything, then you can pick up your gun, you take it back to the police department, they run a ballistics test on it so that if there is a crime committed and the ballistics in the crime match the ballistics test of your gun, then they have that on record. And then once everything is done, then you're able to take it home. Hawaii has some of the lowest rates of gun-related crimes in the nation, as does New Hampshire. But obviously, two very different circumstances. We're, can't drive across state lines to get to Hawaii, so it's different. My point being that every state has a different situation. And I think that this is part of the conversation that we need to have nationally about what are the baseline standards that we should have in place to ensure that, yes, law-abiding citizens really are not the concern here. It's really about making sure we have those background checks and to make sure that with due process, that those who may be in a position to do harm to others are not able to get their hands on a firearm. So part of that is really looking at whether it's a permitting or licensing or something like that, providing for those steps to background checks and other things to make sure that that objective is accomplished. And I think there's a lot of different ways to do that that need to be discussed. Yeah, go here.
Thank you. Thanks for coming here, a breath of fresh air.
Thank you, sir.
With your approach to the government, reasonable, logical, rational. As you characterize the three-ring circus in Washington and continues in the debate stage for the Democratic Party. Trust me, I think that's my opinion, but it's just a three-ring circus fighting each other instead of getting to the point. But
I agree.
That being said, a couple questions. As president, the Democratic Party is very fractured. And as president, how would you bring them together? Because you got that, the left wing, the squad, who, I mean, they're off the map. Really, I mean, they're unrealistic, okay? So, I mean, you got to be factual and put realism out there. When you're realistic, I think about all your policies and how they're going to, how you're going to accomplish them. But how are you going to bring that wing of the party, or even bring them together under one umbrella? That's number one question. Number two question is, the economy is going very, very well. Unemployment, all the factors are good. We don't have to repeat them here. You know what they are. Yeah. Will you be able to maintain that progress and that with the policies, as I said, the Democratic Party, the squad and everybody else, a lot of them just want to just tear that right down. All those policies they want to get rid of. So how do you compromise that? And the third question is, I'm sorry, Bill.
You're getting a three-fer here.
Yeah. The third question is the debt. What are we going to do about that? That's crazy. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Really, thank you, sir. I think your questions here are somewhat interconnected, right? Right. Look, I think the Democratic Party has always been very diverse, which I think is a good thing. The Democratic Party that I joined when I first came of age and started thinking about politics for myself and what party I wanted to join, I joined the Democratic Party because it has traditionally been the big tent party, where you can have people who are radically on one side of the political spectrum as well as people who are on the other side. But really the thing that kind of was the central tent pole in this big tent party was that our party is a party of, by, and for the people. That our party was a party that fought to bring voice to the voiceless, that fought to bring about a better quality of life for hardworking Americans across this country, that fought for equal treatment for every single American, to fight against the discrimination, so on and so forth. So I don't think it is a problem that there is diversity within our party. I think it's a reflection of the diversity in our country. I think the problem comes in this kind of cancel culture that we're living in now that's really dangerous, where there are like purity tests, and if you are not good enough, then you shouldn't even open your mouth. You shouldn't even be allowed to talk. And I think that's really where the problem is. And it's not limited to the Democratic Party, by the way. And the diversity within the Republican Party has also grown. Agree? Yeah. That you have people on many different ends of the political spectrum in the Republican Party as well. Again, a reflection of America. I have some of my Republican colleagues in Congress who sit in various places on that spectrum, and even amongst them, there's a lot of argument and debate and heated discussion about what is the right way. What does the Republican Party represent in today's America? So to your question about how to lead and about how to bring people together, it is remaining very focused. Yes, within the Democratic Party is bringing it back to what I view as the soul of the Democratic Party. Right, and that agenda is not in one box or another box, but it's an agenda that is for the people of this country. And so it's about bringing that focus to my party, but really bringing that focus to the forefront in our government, because we are a diverse nation, and in order to actually be able to deliver results, we've got to be able to bring people together also from both parties to achieve those objectives. So it's not easy, but having that leadership that's able to reach out, that's able to have respectful dialogue, to set that platform, to set the stage for constructive conversation is what's necessary. You're never going to get everybody to agree on everything. That's a fact. That's life, right? Even in my own family, we never get everybody to agree on everything. But you're always going to be able to start with at least one thing that you can find common ground on. Start from there. Build trust. You build relationships. Say, okay, let's do the next thing. Let's do the next thing. And if you get to a place on any one of the issues that we're facing where you're able to build that consensus for improving the quality of life for the people in this country, then that's a positive step forward. And that's really to your question about the economy, unemployment, some of the positive things that we are seeing now. And we are seeing some a continued positive trend. I think that there are other issues below the surface, some that have to do with the debt and deficit that we have to confront as a nation, that are raising alarm bells for a lot of folks who are concerned about another crash in our economy. So again, I think it's important to look past the top line numbers that are reported often in the media as a sign of an improving economy, to make sure that we again are recognizing that even as there are low employment numbers, 80% of people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck and are not able to plan for a family emergency or even a family vacation, that they're not sure how they're going to survive month by month, especially if something goes wrong. A lot of people working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. So yes, they're employed, but gosh, their quality of life is working 7 days a week just to survive. So we can recognize what's working now, and we should, but we should always be looking to strengthen and to improve, recognizing that the quality of our lives is not defined by gross domestic product or what the stock market is doing or what the unemployment or job numbers are. There are different indicators, but that does not define the quality of our lives. And so we should look to what steps can we take in so many different ways, in jobs, supporting small business, reforming our healthcare system, working towards improving the affordable housing crisis that's facing this country, where the cost of living is increasing and increasing and increasing, but incomes are not increasing along with that enough to be able to afford it. Really start looking at the quality of life issues that we still have here and coming together to be able to start solving them.
First, I would like to thank you for co-sponsoring the We the People amendment in the House. For those who don't know, that's an amendment that states that corporations do not have constitutional rights because they are not people. Money is not the same as First Amendment free speech, and government shall regulate political spending. My question is, or actually it's a request, is for you to work that amendment into your campaign, to try to get it into the Democratic platform, and should you be elected president, to support that amendment and push it in Congress.
Thank you. Yes is the answer. to all of those things. I strongly support the legislation that's before Congress and believe it should be a core pillar in the Democratic platform, but most importantly that it's acted upon, that there's legislation passed and that we see these campaign spending reforms take place in our country. Because as you know very well, as we look to the obstacles that exist towards actually changing a lot of the policies that are hurting us as Americans, those obstacles center around big special interest money in politics. Do we have anybody from the ARP here tonight? Last night we had a town hall in Hudson, and a woman was there. They have amazing people, volunteers, they send out to all of the different political events, but they have these red shirts that say "Stop Greed, lower prescription drug prices now." It's an incredible message. Stop the greed, lower prescription drug prices now, because they're pointing out how many seniors in this country are struggling, living off of fixed incomes, dealing with, again, high cost of living, an extreme shortage in affordable housing and senior housing, and they're dependent on certain medications, and yet those prices continue to rise and increase, and they can't afford it. It's not something limited to seniors, it's something that's happening to a lot of people, a lot of families across the country. And why is it that Medicare right now is not allowed to negotiate lower prescription drug prices with Big Pharma? Exactly, it's all about the money. But it's written into our laws that our government, the largest purchaser of prescription drugs in the nation, in the world, the largest customer, prescription drugs in the world, is prohibited from using that leverage to negotiate lower prescription drug prices.
That almost made it into the new NAFTA.
Almost.
Except for Democrats in Congress.
Well, look, this one crosses both party lines. This one crosses both party lines. It's been this way for a while as power has gone from one party to another. So I think we should be clear in casting the blame across both sides. And the reason is because Big Pharma as an industry, they spend more money on lobbyists and PAC money, contributions that they're giving to members of Congress, than they spend on their ad campaigns on television. They have high-powered lobbyists who work very, very hard to shut down any legislation that would lift this prohibition and allow us, we the people, to actually negotiate lower prescription drug prices that'll take better care of our seniors and our families. So this issue that you're raising about big special interest money and corporate money influencing our politics, influencing foreign policy decisions, influencing healthcare, influencing criminal justice reform. I mean, you look all the way down the line, environmental policy, there's such a deep level of corruption in this pay-to-play culture that exists that we've got to root out, and this is one important step in doing so. Thank you.
All right, folks, we have time for one more question.
Where is she? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to get your opinion on what's going on with Julian Assange right now and how you would handle whistleblowers in a Gabbard administration.
Thank you. What's your name?
Nora.
Nora, thanks for being here. What we have seen in the arrest and the charges against Julian Assange should be of concern to everyone, because what this really is threatening is freedom of the press. Not a small thing. That because he released information that was embarrassing to our government, these charges occurred. Now we looked, and he's now being incarcerated because of it. Going back and looking at the previous administration, the Obama administration, they were initially looking at filing charges, and I think former Attorney General Eric Holder spoke about this, that they were looking at filing charges but didn't because of their concern about the precedents it would set in threatening freedom of the press. Whether you are a self-starting journalist and blogger, or you're working for a major media corporation, to have this cloud cast over you, to have to think about whether or not the release of information would result in charges and incarceration because it's embarrassing to our government, is something that threatens the core of our constitutional foundation. And this precedence cannot be set. So if I were president today, I would drop those charges against Julian Assange and anyone else who is being threatened under these same circumstances. Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's an important question, and we can't forget what, again, we started this conversation here tonight about our Constitution, the bedrock of this country. Our democracy is far from perfect, but we must maintain and uphold and never be complacent in allowing these freedoms to be eroded. So I'm sorry we don't have more time tonight to get to more questions. Wanted to allow for a few minutes if any of you would like to come up and say hello or take a picture before we go. We'll have the opportunity to do that. But before we get there, I want to introduce David, the birthday boy here tonight. He's going to share a few words.
Thank you so much. So I'm not from around here. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And I've been involved in politics for my entire adult life, which, as you know, is not very long. And I always wanted to run for office. That's something that I've wanted to do since I was a little kid. And everybody tells you, you're not old enough, you don't have enough exposure, you're not going to have enough money, all of these different things. And then I saw Tulsi Gabbard. And she was elected at 21 to the Hawaii State Legislature. She's now running this campaign with no PAC money, no corporate lobbyist money, nothing like that, with the media and everyone else against her, and she is still bringing her message to every single person. And I get to now spend every day watching people's hearts and minds change and more people join the movement. And getting to see that over the summer is what actually pushed me into running for New York City Council this year. I'm not the only one. I know I have a lot of friends in New York and across the country that were motivated by watching you do what you do, and it's an incredible movement that you've helped start. And so after my campaign was over, I unfortunately didn't win, but as soon as it was over, I packed a suitcase and I moved to New Hampshire with no job title, no anything like that, no guarantee of anything other than house and food, and just said, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it, because this campaign needs it and deserves it. And I have enjoyed every single day that I've spent here in New Hampshire. And I am up here to tell you guys a little bit about how you can do the same. You don't have to pack up and move, especially since you already live here. That's helpful. So everyone, when you got here, if you are standing in the back, you probably didn't get one yet, but we have Devin and Noah in the back with more of these. These are a pledge card. It says, "Tulsi can count on me." It's just a little bit of information to fill out on the front, and then the back is a short list of ways that you can get involved with the campaign, whether that's just telling 2 people about Tulsi, whether that's holding a house party, which we've had quite a few of here in New Hampshire, just tweeting it out, sharing your support, getting people that follow you on social media to get involved. Or you can show up to events, help us run our sign-in table or run cables or sign wave out front. We have a whole list of things that you can do as a volunteer. And so I would just ask you all to fill one of these out, and then you can give it back to either me, Janet here over at the table, or Noah in the back. And we'll reach out as soon as possible, and I'll probably be the one calling at least half of you. And I'm really excited to get to talk to you guys and figure out how your skills can be best utilized on the campaign and get this woman elected. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Happy birthday. Thank you for spending it with us here. I'm so grateful. We have so many incredible volunteers who really are the engine fueling our campaign. How many of you know when Election Day here, primary election day is here in New Hampshire? February 11th. February 11th. It's coming up quick. It's coming up quick. Something that I really appreciate about New Hampshire voters in particular, obviously as first in the nation, you know the great responsibility that you have, and that you make this decision for yourself. That even on any day of the week, you'll see a new poll come out, you'll see the pundits saying, well, this person's gonna win, or this person has no chance, or don't pay attention to this person, listen to that person. What I've experienced here is you don't listen to any of that. That you do your research, that you listen, and you make your best informed decision on who you would like to see serve you as our next president and commander-in-chief. So I am grateful for that independence and the thoughtfulness with which you put into making this very important decision. I want to close tonight with how Abraham Lincoln closed the speech that he delivered 161 years ago, where he talked about a house divided against itself cannot stand. He closed that speech by saying, "We shall not fail." We shall not fail. If we stand fast, we shall not fail. Failure is not an option. There is so much at stake. It is our lives, the future that we leave behind for our kids, and the future of this country. I invite you to join us in this people-powered movement to work together, side by side, to ensure that our White House, that our government is one that is of, by, and for the people, solely focused on that mission of serving you. Thank you again for being here tonight. Aloha. Thank you.
We're going to form a picture line coming in from the left, and then Melissa and Sky are passing around pens. Thanks.